Welcome back to Rider Rays. We're looking at 1 John 2:15 through 17. Today, we're looking at in the world versus from the Father. First of all that is in the world is from the world and not from the Father. Makes sense. If we're claiming to be Christians, then the world has nothing to offer us. In John's typical minimalist style, he summarizes all the world has in 3 phrases: desires of the flesh, desires of the eyes, and the pride of life. Let's take a look at these. Desires of the flesh. This includes every way that you can please the senses of your physical body that has been prohibited by God. This is often described as pleasing the mere animal or lower part of human nature. Let me mention a few examples. This would include all forms of sexual immorality, which is any sexual activity outside of the marriage between a biological male and a biological female. The world has many different varieties of this sin that it loves, parades down the street, and will more than happily instruct you in how to do that and how great it is. The world takes what is good and commanded by God and abuses it. Desires of the flesh includes gluttony or overindulgence in food and drink. This is a sin that is rarely talked about today. I've read of Christians in the past fasting just to check whether they were giving into the sin of gluttony. They wanted to check themselves to see if they had already given into this sin. The world uses the gift of flavor and variety of food that God has given to destroy our own bodies. Similarly, drunkenness is a desire of the flesh. Excessive alcohol is pleasurable for most people, yet that leads to loss of self-control, and it leads to other sins. And so you have those examples there. There's more, but those are a couple examples that we could point to. The desires of the eye. This describes sins that are more internal rather than external pleasure. It's not so much about what your physical eyeballs find stimulating, but what causes you to sin from what you see. One example is what Jesus says in Matthew. You have heard that it was said, "You shall not commit adultery." But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Coveting is another desire of the eyes. You want something you don't have, and you want it. Jesus said, "Take care and be on guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." We can include other things like envy, jealousy to this list as well. Then there's the pride of life. Jesus warns against this in Matthew 23. He shows us the scribes and Pharisees as perfect examples of those who have the pride of life. The scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat, and so do and observe what they tell you, he says. But not the works they do, for they preach, but do not practice. They tie up heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on people's shoulders. But they themselves are not willing to move them with their finger. They do all their deeds to be seen by others, for they make their phylacteries broad and their fringes long. They love the place of honor at feast and the best seats in the synagogues and greetings in the marketplaces and being called rabbi by others. See, the pride of life is selfish pride. And whatever causes it, or displays it, like the places of honor, that's what the pride of life is. Boasting, bragging, arrogance, and insolence are all symptoms of the pride of life. What is Jesus teaching on this? Whoever exalts himself will be humbled. Whoever humbles himself will be exalted. So you can have the pride of life now, but what is the end of that pride? John says that the Father is not in any of these things. He's not the author of this. The world is the absence, really, of the Father. You turn to the desires of the flesh, the Father's not there. Give in to the desire of the eyes, the Father's not there. Seek the pride of life, the Father's not there. Albert Barnes puts it this way: it is not of the nature of true religion to seek things, nor can their pursuit be reconciled with the existence of real piety in the heart. The sincere Christian has nobler ends. And he who has not any higher ends, and whose conduct and feelings can all be accounted for by a desire for these things, cannot be a true Christian. So that's our study for today. Come back next time and we'll take a look at the passing of the world versus forever for the Christian.